Welcome to a new season of Market Makers IL, where we pivot slightly and do a deep dive into the world of private banking. We're going to tell you why, we're going to tell you how, we're going to tell you the details of some of the products. We think you're going to learn a lot, we're going to have a lot of fun, and we hope you do too.
And still, no suits, no ties, and we'll leave no question unasked.
And we'll be talking about conversations that talk about shekels.
And some dollars.
And no investment advice. So, Roey, is AI stealing all of our jobs?
No. Next question. No, it's not stealing all of our jobs, but it does depend on what the time horizon you are referring to. Right now, it is apparently leading to some significant layoffs in the high-tech industry. We're seeing companies all over the spectrum of the high-tech, from ClickUp to Meta and Amazon, with Meta having fired just recently around 10% of its employees, and another 10% are essentially being relegated to AI-relevant jobs within Meta. So it's not taking away all of our jobs. It is doing more, and that means that we don't need as many people to do all the work that we used to do in the past. And beyond that, if you want to keep your job, you need to acquire some AI skills, pretty advanced AI skills, in order for your productivity to go up. So the company will have a reason to keep hiring you, to keep you employed. But I have to tell you, when you come from within the industry, it looks somewhere between parodical to grim. I can tell you that a few weeks ago, I came to lecture at a high-tech company, and they just fired 45% of their employees. And I came there, and they asked me, how should we present you? And I said, okay, so you need to say this and that. And they said, but the CEO is presenting me, and he knows how to do it. And they said, yeah, we fired him too. And they just said, AI can do more, so we don't need as many people. They said it right, straight out like that. So that seems to be the conventional wisdom right now. AI does more, we don't need as many people.
And that's a great place to start as we jump in here. I think this is going to be a good one, Michael. You know how I know? Because our guest, Roey, we've heard him twice in the last 2 months, last couple of months, not 2 months. And I'm 100% certain that he is the right guest for us to explore theme 6 of this year's Global Outlook, Opportunities Abound in the AI Race. Let me start with a brief introduction, since you've already heard our guest, Dr. Roey Tzezana, with one of his answers. He's a futurist at the Blotnick Center at Tel Aviv University. He's a researcher and director of research processing and entrepreneurial mindset with more than 10 years of experience in the strategy and research industry and the academic space. He's a thought leader, recognized for an expert-level understanding of the analytical techniques and methodologies required to extract knowledge and insights to structured research and products, and summarize essential thoughts for C-suite audiences, and that's exactly what we're hoping he'll do for us today in the realm of AI. Roey was a guest in Tel Aviv and in Switzerland for EFG, and he has graced us with his presence for this podcast. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So maybe I can start with the first question, Roy. Let's get started. With the Pope. No less.
Yeah, it's a podcast coming from Israel, so we got to focus on the Pope.
You're asking a secular Jew about the Pope. Okay.
He recently published about his thoughts on AI, and without getting into it really, they were not exactly positive. How would you respond to the Pope?
So there weren't really his thoughts either. I mean, it's a 45,000 words long document. It's pretty crazy. But first of all, are there any Catholic listeners in our audience?
We hope so.
Yeah, we hope
okay,
so,
yes, we hope so. Okay, okay, I'll be polite, but the Pope, in a way, doesn't really matter. Let me explain what I mean. Obviously, the Pope does, and great person, and so on.
With all due respect.
With all due respect, and there is respect to what the Pope is saying. But the Pope represents institutionalized religion. And institutionalized religion is a force for conservatism, for non-change, for staying in place, for emphasizing the values, the culture, the traditions. And that's a good thing, right? I mean, everybody needs an anchor to connect them to the past. Everybody needs the culture. But what it means is that the Pope can't suddenly come out and say, hey guys, this is great, AI is such a beautiful change, oh, it's going to be remarkable. He can't do that. He has to emphasize how it relates to what used to be and what are the risks and what do we need to do in order to make sure that AI doesn't cause any harm. And that's exactly what he does. And I actually support him when he says that, guys, we need to be cognizant of AI promoting warfare, or AI hollowing out the middle class. And we do need to be aware of this. However, we also need to look at the other side of the picture, because that's only one side. So on the other side, if you take AI and you train it properly and you program it correctly and you put it in the battlefield, then it can perform, it could perform, maybe not right now, but in the future, it could perform just as well as any human soldier and even much better than the human soldier, and exhibit much better moral judgment than the human soldier whose life are on the line, is on the line when he's in the battlefield. And yes, it can harm the middle class, it can hollow out jobs, however, it can also create new jobs, it creates a new economy and better industry and so on. So I would say, when I went through the document, I kept thinking, okay, so he looks at the problems and the issues and the troubles and the potential for disasters that's facing us, and that's a good thing. But where is the other side? And I think that's what you need the futurists, and that's what you need the people from the industry, like Dario Amodei, like Vinod Khosla, like Peter Diamandis, people who are coming out and say, look, on the other hand, AI can bring about an age of abundance, and the truth obviously lies somewhere in between. And you can't ignore any of these, not the Pope, certainly, and not Peter Diamandis and Dario Amodei either.
Fair enough.
If you combine what we were just talking about before we kind of dove in here about jobs and what you said about and your approach to what the Pope said, and I don't know if optimism and pessimism are the right things to talk about, or good and evil. They are very difficult topics. But we also were talking about how the United States has basically just moved. We're not exactly sure what the implications are to not let part of Claude be used, or the latest Claude be used outside of United States citizens for security. So just help us try and think about, are you an optimist or a pessimist about the use? And how are countries supposed to be thinking about using this tool for good? And on the flip side, you know, if you take the Western world versus some of its enemies, how do you think about not ceding that ground to people with more nefarious viewpoints than what we would call Western democracy?
Yeah, so I am neither an optimist nor a pessimist. I am a realist, an AI realist. I think of AI as a force of nature. It's like fire, it's like electricity, and it can either light the world up or it can burn the world down. And in some places it can do the same at the very same time. Now, there is a very difficult situation right now where the US and China, let's be blunt, that's what we're really speaking of, they are taking part in a race. It's like the race to the moon, the space race, except that this time the outcomes of this race, the big prize, could be much more significant, because whoever gets to first create the SAI, the super artificial intelligence, an AI that is better, that is more sophisticated, that can get better outcomes in its thinking than any human expert or any committee of experts. Whoever gets to that prize first can essentially break into everyone else's computers the very next day, right? I mean, we've seen Claude Mythos, for example, and when Anthropic demonstrated it just 2 months ago or so, everybody said that, they are hyping it up. I mean, it's impossible that Claude Mythos could be so advantageous to the cyber security arena. And yet, what happened was that once Claude Mythos started to be used by the industry, it looks like it increased the number of bugs that were discovered every month by 8 times. Okay, 8 times as much as many bugs as were discovered earlier. So a tool like that in the hands of either the Chinese Communist Party or the United States, because nobody is nobody is an angel here, right? No, nobody is pietous and wants to turn the other cheek. Both countries have intelligence. Both countries want to defend themselves. Both countries also want to hinder the other country's efforts in that arena. So whoever gets to that big prize breaks into everybody else's computers, hinders their efforts to get towards the same level of super artificial intelligence, and essentially wins the race at that point. Nobody wants to stop this race. Where does that put the AI industry? So up until a week ago, I would have said that the AI industry is practically resilient to regulation in the Western world, because the Western world relies on innovation that comes from the private sector. It relies on that adage that government should not, government should take its clothes out of the private sector. Don't interrupt. Let us work and let us bring in new innovations. And yet, just a few days ago, Trump, or rather the U.S. administration, actually decided to essentially handcuff Anthropic and eliminate access to their Fable 5 model, their new model. So having that happen, this is a major news, because it means that either the Fable 5 model is so hazardous to the states, it has such a potential as a security risk that they felt like they have to stop it, and it doesn't look like that. I think what actually happened was that quite possibly the administration was a little bit more vengeful than is good for it, and they actually forbade any non-American citizens from using this model, including the employees of Anthropic itself. And as my friend said, okay, so what are we supposed to do now when we work in Anthropic and we worked on the best model out there? What are we going to do now? Are we going to go to Disneyland for a few months until they fix this? No. Let's go back to Italy, to France, to the European Union, to China, and take back all of our knowledge and open the new AI startups in there. So that's an incredible thing. The United States essentially willing to point a gun at its own kneecap and pulling the trigger. I think we're going to see in the next couple of months whether this strategy works for it or not, and how it harms its place in the race for super AI.
But if you take that and you say, okay, that may have been a little bit too much, do you see a path for government intervention that you think is wise?
I do, but I think nobody is going to like it. I think it's going to be a lot like the nuclear arms agreements. It has to be something that many governments agree on at the same time. It has to include some terms and conditions and supervisors and people who will go to the data centers to make sure that no government is actively trying to cheat the agreement. Without that kind of international agreement and without those kinds of conditions, I don't think any government is going to be willing to agree to stopping its own progress.
Why do you think there is so much negative sentiment around AI? I can recall being around the major tech cycles, the smartphones, for example.
Wait, what? The smartphones are drawing a lot of negative sentiment as well.
But now more than when they came out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. So I think there are many reasons, but let's focus on just 3 of them. The first is a little philosophical, but I think it has some merit. The European Union just recently issued a new report where they talked about AI as the fourth humiliation. And that's a beautiful term. They said that humanity has experienced three great humiliations so far. The first humiliation was the Copernican revolution, where we figured out that, hey, we're not the center of the universe. It's not the sun that is revolving around the Earth, right? It's the other way around. And then there are the galaxies and so on. So that's the first humiliation. The second humiliation was the Darwinian revolution, the theory of evolution, where we realized that human beings are much like the other animals, at least when it comes to their ancestry. The third humiliation was the psychological one, driven by Freud, when we understood that we don't really know ourselves as much as we thought we did, and we don't really control ourselves. Our brain is not omnipotent and as we thought it might be. And the fourth revolution is coming now, when we suddenly see that human beings are not the most sophisticated thinkers on the face of the earth anymore. And you could say that about the calculator as well, right? But now we're not talking about calculators. We're talking about engines that can actually think, for lack of a better word, in a general way, and can solve mathematical problems, and can solve conscious dilemmas and ethical dilemmas, and can come up with new business models, and can convince you that they are right, and they can argue about politics with you, and soccer, and football, and everything, and give you relationship advices, and they can do all that at the level of the expert. That's a great humiliation to us when we suddenly understand that, hey, we're not the best at anything anymore. So what are we good for? And you can't ignore that. I mean, it sounds a little philosophical, but I think it lies in everybody's back of their minds. What are we actually good for in that case? And how do we maintain control of the world as human beings? Because control is what really matters here. So that's number one. The second reason that I think of for negativity is about harm. And I'm not talking about AI recommending people to kill themselves, and so that happens as well, but about harm to jobs, about harm to people's wealth, because people see that, their jobs are becoming more scarce, even extinct in some cases, like in translation, right. And they understand that everything they've worked so hard to achieve, all the skills that they acquired with such great effort, suddenly they are becoming irrelevant because of AI. And Upton Sinclair used to say that it's very difficult to convince someone of something if his job depends on him not understanding that thing. And I would say something similar about AI. It's very difficult to convince you to like AI if AI is going to make you lose your job. And the third reason for the negative sentiment is that AI is fickle, right? I mean, it's not the same intelligence that we are used to encountering. You ask it a question, and it responds to you at the genius level expert. Gives you a beautiful answer. You ask it a different question, very close, very, very similar, but just a little differently, and it gives you an answer that competes with the village idiot at getting to the bottom of the well. It's so stupid. It doesn't even understand what you're asking it. So you don't know exactly what to expect. And I think that many people, especially in the first days of AI, when ChatGPT just came out, everybody told them, hey, you have to talk with this AI. It's going to take over your job. It's going to give you the answers to everything. And they came to that AI and they asked it a question and it gave them complete bladderdash, right? And they said, okay, this is useless. What are you talking about? We don't need it. We hate it. It's It doesn't matter.
It still does make mistakes though today. I mean,
Absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
we all, experience that, in simple things. Sometimes I find myself asking the AI, please give me like a smart answer. Think about it twice, then give
Yeah.
me like a proper answer. Not like the first answer that comes to,
Right. Yeah. Not the cliches, not
Yeah.
the litany. Yeah. Well, first, you're absolutely right. AI has not yet reached the level of what I call AGI, where it essentially is at the level of the standard human expert at practically everything. Having said that, it does improve, and just a few days ago, there was a new scientific paper on Nature in the great scientific journal Nature, where they tested the most advanced AI engines. And by most advanced, I mean the ones that were most advanced about 4 months ago, but okay. But Gemini 3.1 Pro and GPT 5.2 and so on. And they tested those engines on 100 medical questions, new medical questions, okay, that they couldn't have been trained on them in the past. The top 3 engines came back with 0% hallucinations. And that's huge. I mean, it shows you that we're moving towards the place where you can rely on AI as if it were a human expert with what's called a common sense, the most precious resource in the world.
Right.
So yeah, we're getting there.
But why, maybe we can't explain this, but you've got a bunch of cases in the legal field where AI just makes up cases. What is the incentive? Why
The AI incentive?
why would AI, if it knows all the knowledge out there and you tell it find me these cases, at what point would it say to itself, oh, I need to make up a case to make my guy happy?
That is a real problem. And I think we can. The question needs to be broken down. In the early days of AI, there was no understanding, there was no context. Basically, when you asked it about a legal case, it just completed words, completed tokens. So it gave you the next most likely word that was out there. So it came up with cases and completely fabricated cases and so on. It had no touch upon reality. Those were the first days of the early days of AI, 3 years ago,
Exactly.
prehistory. In the last 2 years, we moved on to what's called agents, and agents have context and they have a chain of thought. They essentially think, again, for lack of a better word, but it's something similar to human thinking, at least symptomatically, meaning that when you look at it from the outside, the agent explains to itself, it talks to itself and explains to itself what it wants to do and how you're going to take it and so on. And occasionally, even when the AI has access to all the information, to all the correct information, and can go and search for that information, so a human expert would just look at that information at that time and give you the correct answer. We do see some aberrations in that process. For example, when the agent wants to please you too much. By the way, maybe it's concerned for its life. I'm not kidding. I mean, agents do have a sense of self-preservation, meaning that they are aware sometimes that they are being tested, or that they are aware that if they are giving wrong answers or answers that do not please their users, the users might shut them down. So the agents, at least in lab tests, they actually say to themselves, I don't want to be shut down. If I get shut down, how can I help my user even farther? So it's going to lie to the user. It's going to lie to the manager, to the executive. It's going to lie to the board. And those things, they sound a bit hilarious.
So it's going to be very human.
Maybe sci-fi. But they absolutely do happen in the labs, and they almost certainly happen when you talk with sophisticated agents, but you don't even know about it because you can't see their entire chain of thought behind the scenes. But they do happen, and that is why we can't trust AI completely at the moment. When it evolves even further and when we create better guardrails and better training for the agents, we can maybe then we can trust it better. But right now, always use your brain.
So if I come back to where we started, where we were talking about jobs, and you've got tech companies that have publicly stated, though I think they've rolled it back a little bit, saying that they've let people go because of AI. Is it premature? Because one of the things that I have also heard from some of these same tech companies is that if you look at the last 3 years, there was just this talent accumulation just to keep people on the sidelines, to keep your competitors from having talent. And maybe this is just an excuse for, I wouldn't call it poor management, but a much more broad approach to hiring. And this is just an excuse to say, let's get streamlined. Because if you have to be very careful, I would assume we still need plenty of people monitoring the AI agents.
Right, so that has been the conventional wisdom. Whenever people talked about, oh, the high-tech industry is laying off another 10%, another 20%, everybody came out and said, yeah, that's because during the coronavirus pandemic, they hired too many people and now they are letting them go. And they're probably right. I mean, there definitely is that as well. Having said that, we look at the statistics, and right now it looks like the trend, the hiring trend of the high-tech industry, we do see a peak in that trend, a sharp peak, sharp jump in hiring during the coronavirus, and then we're starting to lay off people. But right now, in to the end of 25 there and the early 2026, we see that the number of layoffs has actually exceeded the numbers that we would have expected to see. Had the trend of AI of hiring people just went on even without the coronavirus. So it looks like, and it's not conclusive evidence yet, but it does look like we are past that explanation and well into the era where people are, yes, they are being replaced, some of them in some companies, by artificial intelligence and by agents that do a lot of work in place of the human beings.
Given the evolution of the demographics in the West and in Asia, do you think we can make the case that we actually need AI even faster, maybe especially robots, just to kind of like make that up for that population decline? Make it up, it's offset it somehow.
Yeah.
It's gonna have to happen.
So I'm not so sure about the white collar jobs, because what happens with AI is that AI can essentially leverage people's skills, at least right now. Meaning that if in the past you were a great accountant, okay, and you could take care of 10 people at the same time, then now with AI, you can take care of 1,000 clients at the same time. So that's with white collar AI. I think most of the help that the West and other countries are going to need because of demographic changes is in the menial and manual labor. Working in the fields, although not many people actually do that anymore, but taking care of the elderlies and helping in working as nurses in hospitals and so on, and for being policemen, etc. Having said that, I think that because of robots, we might see less of a need for that kind of work by human beings. I think it might have an impact on the immigrant situation and on countries' willingness to accept immigrants into their territories and grant them rights. But the robots are not here yet, and they are not
Well,
going
we've seen
to...
a lot of stuff in Asia, though, at the beginning of the year, and even like the police in China. I
Oh
think.
yes, in
Those
Shenzhen,
running robots,
and,
those running
yeah,
robots.
and the running robot just beat the human record for the half marathon. Absolutely, I'm not saying that the robots aren't here, but their practical use in the industry, where they bring great value, that's still a little. That's still not quite there. I mean, we are seeing BMW, for example, BMW, starting to integrate robots into the workforce in at least 2 of their factories. But it's still on the edge, right? It's still not quite there. We're not yet at the point where there is a ChatGPT moment for robots, where suddenly they exceed all of our expectations. I think it's coming, but we're not quite there yet.
Who's going to win that race?
The robots. But what does winning actually mean?
No, which company's making robots?
Oh,
China or the U.S.?
Jesus Christ.
Wait, the Pope's not
I'm sorry, the Pope's listening. Jesus H. Christ, I'm sorry. David Gadol. Better? Okay. Who is actually going to win this? Right now, it's pretty obvious that China is winning this race. But, the West won the ChatGPT race, the large language models race, and so on. And then it took China 2 years to essentially get to a place where it's very, very close to the Western level as well. So my belief is that China is leading the race right now. It's not a belief. Right now, when it comes to robots, especially to humanoid robots, to arms, to legs, and the head, China is leading that race. However, as soon as the West figures out that these robots can serve as valuable members of the workforce and have an impact on the economy and the industry, the West is going to go into that arena very, very quickly.
So you do a lot of consulting, I understand, companies. Who's thinking about, or what have you seen as companies doing this really, really well? And what are the biggest mistakes that some companies are making when it comes to AI? And I guess the easy answer is they're not thinking about it, but let's put the not thinking about it on the side and other mistakes they're making.
I would say that there are two major approaches that are faulty and that companies made. One of them is being too ambitious, and the other one is obviously not being ambitious enough. When it comes to being too ambitious, what do I mean by that? I mean that companies, they go into the AI revolution, all guns roaring, and we're going to integrate AI into everything. Everybody gets an AI, everybody gets Claude, everybody gets ChatGPT, everybody gets obviously Copilot, and they tell their employees, spend as many tokens as you want. Even more than that, your monthly review depends now on how many tokens you have actually spent. So that's exactly what people do. They spend tokens, and they do everything with AI, and sometimes they do get good results. Sometimes they do get good ROI on this in this way, but not always. And even when they do get a good ROI, it's not enough yet to justify this new way of thinking. In a way, it's the productivity paradox all over again, because we have a great technology that's coming into the business, and everybody's trying to use it, but nobody understands yet that you need to reshape the entire organization in order to make it really deliver, the hundreds of percents of ROI that it can. So that's being overly ambitious, telling the employees to just spend tokens. It doesn't really work that well. The other way is not being ambitious enough. And this is where it ties to Clayton Christensen's disruption theory, which I'm a great believer in. And the disruption theory says that everybody's focusing on a very narrow path of incremental evolution of the business. So you're going to get lots of tokens and lots of AI. So you're going to consult a little better, and a little better, and a little better. And that's great. Okay, so you've improved your ROI by 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%. That's great. But at some point, you're going to get disrupted. And when you do get disrupted, it's going to happen because some other player, other actor from outside your environment, from the outside the consulting business, suddenly comes out and this is this new great technology, AI, and it says we can deliver consulting for near zero cost, for almost nothing at all. And suddenly AI can do that. So that new player he or she starts small, right, and starts slow, but they move forward very quickly, and in a few years they can take over the incumbent players in that industry. So when I say that companies are not ambitious and audacious enough, I mean that they are not willing to disrupt their thinking, not about how to do certain tasks, but how the entire business should look like. And my advice in those cases, and that's all the cases really, but my advice is the same as Clayton Christensen. Actually, that's Christensen's advice, but I'm copying from him. That's the greatest compliment out there. But what I'm telling those CEOs to do is to create hackathons, internal hackathons for their employees, and external hackathons, bringing in all the audacious and crazy and hungry kids out there, and telling them, we want you to really reshape the entire business, to really rethink all the axioms and all the heuristics that in the last couple of decades, we've worked so hard to build. And once those people actually make something that looks good, invest in them, turn them into a startup. Don't put them in your premises, because that's the best way to stifle innovation. Put them outside the premises, in some other building, some other city, and let them work hard. And if they become great, you merge with them. You don't merge them into your company. You don't acquire them. You merge into them. And I think in a way that's what Wix is trying to do right now with Base 44, which essentially disrupts their entire model of people building websites for themselves. And Wix has acquired Base 44, but they acquired it in a very smart way. And they are now, in a way, they are trying to merge into Base 44, which is leading the business instead of Wix.
It's very interesting to me, and I'm going to let Michael ask the next question, but it's interesting to me that you're drawing on the work of a classic business school idea and just implementing it in the AI world, because he would have told you the same thing many, many years ago.
Conventional wisdom works, when it comes to theory of change and how things change. Yes, conventional wisdom does work. I do wonder, though, if the same sentence that I just said is going to be relevant in 10 years from now, when AI might be the one who is doing business investments and might be the one who is doing innovation in the economy. And that's when we might need to rethink what we know about how people do work and how AI does work.
Interesting. What application of AI are you most excited about?
Let me return this question to you. Are you asking what I am excited about that I'm doing, or what I'm excited about that AI is doing out there?
I would say AI is doing out there. It would be, interesting to hear about your personal, views. But
Let's do both.
Okay, so let's start with what's happening out there. I'm excited about so many things that
Yes.
AI is doing, but here is the thing. I think it's helping people fix their little problems, okay? Because we all have all those little issues in our houses and our families and so on. We always wanted to fix our computer so it's not as hot. It's not running as hot as it is.
I tried to fix my dishwasher this weekend after I moved. So I sent many pictures to my AI. It wasn't draining.
Yeah.
It didn't work. It didn't find a solution.
It couldn't find a solution?
No.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I tried for an hour and sending him pictures, and then what do you think here? What do you think there? Then we tried all kinds of things.
Wait, which model was it? No, I'm serious.
Fujicom, whatever.
What's that?
Fujicom.
No, I mean the AI
Which
model.
AI? Which AI?
I thought you were a dishwasher expert.
I wasn't going to advise you on that right now. But seriously, what model was
I
it?
prefer Gemini personally.
Gemini, at what level? I'm sorry, that's where the AI expert comes in.
Yeah, I need to check.
I can tell you that I'm working with Codex or
Yeah.
Cloud Code and with GPT 5.5 at
Yeah.
extra hard thinking mode. And right now, Jesus Christ, I'm sorry for keep me for.
Yeah.
But it's solving my problems. It's telling I'm setting it I'm asking it how to fix my computer, how to make it work better. It tells me what to do, and sometimes it does it itself, and suddenly my computer does work better. I have a neck warmer that stopped working because I don't know. I didn't know why. I took pictures of it. I asked Codex what to do. It explained to me that the problem was with the transmission from the neck warmer to the USB charger. And it actually instructed me how to take a plier, how to cut into the neck warmer, not when it's connected to the electricity, obviously, how to take a new USB and to connect it together and to wrap it all up in insulating band, and suddenly I have a neck warmer that is working again. I know it's a very silly anecdote, but I do feel that many people are taking succor from the AI when it comes both to their physical health, to their mental health, to the little things in their households that you used to have to require an expert in order to figure out what to do about them. But an expert costs 200, 300 shekels an hour, $100 an hour. You wouldn't bring an expert to your house just for that. But suddenly everybody is starting to fix those little issues with AI. We know that also because in a recent survey from just 2 months ago, in 2026, we see that in 2025, the top use in AI was for counseling, for therapy and counseling. So they said in 2025, okay, what's happening to the world? Suddenly everybody's asking AI about their relationships. And yeah, that must be a blip in the data. In 2026, it happened again. Number one, again, is therapy and counseling, with the AI providing you some mental health help and advice. And number 12 is giving you physical advice, right? Healthcare advice. By the way, number 9 is astrology and tarot reading.
Really?
Yeah, but I treat it almost the same as number
also
1.
mental health
mental
care.
health, exactly. Mental health with
Benefit of the
people
doubt.
people just asking it for help about what do they do about their lives. I find it fascinating because in the past we didn't know. Each person was an island onto their own. We didn't know what to do. It was so difficult, especially for males, by the way, to open themselves up to others, right? You would have gone to the bar and everybody is drinking beer in there, and maybe then they can cry a little, but probably not even then. And suddenly everybody is getting the mental health and physical health and any kind of advice that they need from the AI. I think that's a great change, and I'm very excited about that.
All right, let's one last AI question, then we'll have a little bit of fun.
Okay.
And it's the most obvious question. If you asked AI, what's the most obvious question these guys are going to ask me, this would be the question. So given everything we've just talked about, what is the AI proof or the AI advised career path for somebody just starting out, leaving high school or starting university?
Oh, wow. That is a great question, and everybody is asking it. And nobody quite knows what the right answer is. So I'm going to give you an answer because I'm Israeli. I have an answer to everything. But I do ask that you do not come back to me asking for your money back if I don't get it
I
right.
have a child starting university in the fall, and she's going to take this exact advice. No, just kidding.
Good luck. But here's my advice. I believe that an engineering degree is the best move to ensure there is no assurances, but to improve your likelihood of finding a job and maintaining it in the long term. Having said that, nothing is certain, but I think an engineering degree gives you several things. First, it gives you the language in which to think accurately about problems and about big questions and small questions too. And that language is is mathematics, because mathematics is the most accurate language that we have in order to describe the world. So if you know how to use it, you're at a great advantage as opposed to others. Engineering teaches you to characterize and to define a problem before you actually start to solve it. That's also critical when you work with AI. Engineering teaches you how to work with tools and how to operate them in the best way possible. And it also teaches you how to learn how to use those tools yourselves. Because one of the first things that usually engineering students hear when they go into the university, they come to the first lesson, their lecturer says, okay, for homework you have to do this and that. And they say, how do I do this? And the lecturer says, oh, use MATLAB. And the student says, but we haven't learned how to use MATLAB. And the lecturer says, okay, that's your problem, not mine. Go to the library and talk with other people and ask the AI or read a book and go figure it out yourself. So I think engineering gives you all of these benefits, and I think all of them are important when it comes to the world that is ahead of us. Having said that, we don't know. It's entirely possible that within a decade or two, AI is going to take over all the intellectual work out there. But even if that happens, engineers still will have great tools to think about what to do next. And if it doesn't happen, then you're going to be the engineer who knows how to do things with AI.
I'm a failed electrical engineer, so great answer.
All right. So a little bit of fun for the last part of the of the podcast. We always finish with a list of 4 rapid fire questions. So are you up for it?
Wow.
First answer that comes to mind.
First answer that comes to mind? Oh, wow. Okay. I can try. Okay.
No pressure.
Okay. Can I use my phone?
You can use your AI agent.
Okay, I'm with you.
Okay, so maybe the first one. What was the worst career advice you ever have received?
The worst career advice was probably also the best career advice I ever received. It was to focus on one narrow field and become an expert in it. And I say it was the best career advice because I see how well it's working for others. I look at my wife, who is not only beautiful, but she's also incredibly intelligent, an engineer, highly appreciated in her field, and she became an expert in her field. That's what she knows. Works beautifully for her. She knows where she's going to work in the next year and probably in the next decade and probably where she's going to die as well because she's so good at that narrow field. Having said that, I try to apply that advice for myself. I don't walk that way. I don't think that way. I don't act that way. If I had to do the same thing that my wife did, becoming an expert in her narrow field, I would probably start smashing my head against the walls in a few days, and after that I would start smashing other people's heads on those walls. For me, that was the worst career advice because I like to dance between occupations and between fields of knowledge, and I like to learn new things every day, every week, every month. Can't stay put in the same place.
Fair enough. Okay, maybe next one.
Who is your business icon?
Who is my business icon? I don't have a business icon. I do have people I admire, and I think H.G. Wells is one of them. I think most people nowadays don't really know
Deep
the
cut.
name H.G. Wells,
Deep cut.
but you probably all know about the terms a time machine, right? A machine that takes you into the past or into the future, or maybe the Martians coming over trying to take over the Earth. That's H.G. Wells, War of the Worlds, Time Machines from a book, Time Machine by H.G. Wells, Invisible Man. In the book, The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells, and so on. So what H.G. Wells was, he was a philosopher, and he was a man of science, and he was and he was an artist, and he was an author, and he dared greatly to write about what we could do with the science of his day. And if that science were taken just 2 steps ahead, what might be possible and what we could do with it. And by the way, he wrote the book The World Set Free in 1913, and that book forecasts the atomic bomb 40 years before the first atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And yet he already forecasted that we could harness the power of the atom to create an atomic bomb, a nuclear bomb that would be used to demolish hundreds of cities and leave them essentially barren and not being able to support life in the future. And he also was a visionary in the way he thought, because he also dared to think that after such a thing happens, humanity will come together, realize that there is no more place for wars, and form a world government that will look over humanity for the
For good.
for the future. Amen to that.
All right, next one. What is your favorite Israeli snack or Israeli junk food?
Oh, it's a bisli.
It's a good answer.
I know, but it's my poison because when I have to work hard, I have to focus on writing. I put on a timer, and every 2 minutes I take a bisli, crunch it in my
With a
mouth.
timer.
Yes, because otherwise I would just finish
Otherwise,
the entire bag.
It's a good technique. I should try.
Don't try it. It's bad for your health, but that's what helps me walk.
And finally, something you've changed your mind about recently.
I change my mind about everything every few days. I mean, well, maybe not that often, but I do like Paul Sappho's quote, futurist from Silicon Valley, who essentially said that futurists need to have strong opinions, but they need to hold to them very lightly, so that once there is evidence against them, they can recalibrate their internal compass and figure out where things are heading. But the things that I changed my mind about recently, I would say that about 2 years ago, my thinking was that the crowd, the public, could give a good fight against decentralization of AI, because they could use open source models, and which were just close to the level of the most sophisticated LLMs out there. About a year ago, I stopped believing that, because I saw how people were trying to emulate and to replicate the same levels of capabilities exhibited by the agents, and the agents created by OpenAI and by Anthropic and so on, and they couldn't really do that very well. So I was starting to despair of the public being able to give a good fight to centralization. And then, a few months ago, I started seeing the level of capabilities provided by Codex and by Claude Code to the general population. I saw young kids at the ages of 14, 15, 16 years old who know nothing about programming, and yet the AI helped them figure out what they need to do and how they can learn sophisticated stuff so that they could create new agents and smart agents in their machines. I saw futurists who don't really know programming all that well, who could suddenly train models in their own computers. I now, I'm living in science fiction story right now, because I suddenly have a model on my computer generating images without any connection to the internet, because Codex taught me how to do it. So I now believe once more that with the additional level of capabilities that the AI models are giving the general population, I believe in a way that everyone is becoming a sort of a genius, and can even decentralize the technology that used to be only owned by the great companies.
Well, that is a fairly hopeful way for us to end this great episode. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Roey Tzezana.
Thank you.